Have you ever wondered what happens to the specific, intricate arrangement of your consciousness when the biological rhythm of the body finally comes to a gentle stop? We are so accustomed to the idea of an ending. We see the leaves fall from the trees. We watch the sun dip below the horizon, and we feel the inevitable passage of time ticking away, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour. But the universe does not operate on the simple human concepts of beginnings and endings. The cosmos, in its infinite wisdom and quiet vastness, holds a secret that challenges everything we think we know about the nature of existence. It is a secret whispered by the fundamental laws of physics, a truth that rests at the very foundation of reality itself. We experience death as a vanishing, a total erasure of the self, a sudden silence in a room that was once filled with the beautiful noise of thought and memory. But quantum physics, the rigorous science that describes the universe at its most fundamental microscopic level, tells a completely different story. In the realm of the quantum, the universe strictly forbids the true erasure of anything. This is not a philosophical comfort or a poetic wish. It is a mathematical certainty, known as the conservation of quantum information. It is one of the most unbreakable rules of nature, as profound and unyielding as gravity itself. The universe is a perfect memory bank, an ancient library that never ever loses a single page of its cosmic record. To understand this, we must first change our perspective on what we actually are. You're not simply a collection of flesh and bone. You are, at your deepest, most fundamental level, a breathtakingly complex configuration of quantum information. Every single memory you hold, every gentle feeling of love, every quiet moment of wonder you have ever experienced, is physically encoded in the specific arrangements of trillions upon trillions of particles within your brain. To be exact, your brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons, and those neurons are connected by more than 100 trillion synapses. And within those incredibly tiny structures, down at the atomic and subatomic scales, the true nature of your existence is written in the language of quantum states. Imagine for a moment the vastness of the universe. Consider the 14 billion years that have passed since the primordial beginning of everything. Throughout all of those countless eons, energy has been transforming, shifting from one state to another, building galaxies, igniting stars, and weaving the complex cosmic web. But not a single fraction of that energy, not a single solitary quantum bit of information has ever been truly lost. When a massive star, millions of times larger than our sun, finally collapses and explodes in a glorious supernova, it seems like an ultimate destruction. But it is not. The specific quantum states of every single particle that made up that star are perfectly preserved, scattered across the endless dark, riding on waves of light and drifting through the cosmic silence. The information is merely scrambled, redistributed into the vast ocean of space-time, but it is never annihilated. Now, bring that monumental cosmic perspective back to yourself. When the physical structure of the human brain ceases to function, the biological machine stops. But what happens to the quantum information that made you who you are? According to the strictest interpretations of quantum mechanics, that information cannot simply pop out of existence. It cannot be deleted. The universe does not have a mechanism for true erasure. The delicate, entangled web of quantum states that represents your unique consciousness must, by the laws of physics, continue to exist in some form. It is a staggering realization that reorients our entire understanding of mortality. You are, in a very real physical sense, deeply etched into the fabric of the cosmos, permanently recorded in the grand unfolding story of the universe. Let us sit with that thought for a moment. Feel the profound peace that comes from this scientific truth. You are safe. Your essence, your unique pattern, is safe within the gentle embrace of the universe. We spend so much of our lives fearing the dark, fearing the unknown, fearing the moment when the biological clock finally runs out. But physics tells us that there is no true darkness, no absolute void where things simply cease to be. There is only transformation. There is only the continuous, quiet journey of information shifting from one form to another, moving through the vast eternal dance of energy and matter. This is not magic. This is the rigorous, peer-reviewed reality of quantum mechanics, a field of science that has given us the modern world, from the semiconductors in our computers to the lasers that map the distant stars. To go deeper into this mystery, we must look at the nature of particles themselves. In the everyday world, we think of objects as solid, definitive things. A stone is a stone. A chair is a chair. But when we zoom in, past the cells, past the molecules, past the atoms themselves, the solid world dissolves into something far more mysterious and beautiful. At the quantum level, particles do not exist as hard little spheres. Instead, they exist as waves of probability, shimmering fields of potential that stretch out through space and time. These waves are described by a mathematical formula known as the wave function. The wave function contains all the possible information about a particle: its position, its momentum, its spin. And the most remarkable thing about the wave function is that it evolves continuously. It is a seamless, unbroken flow of mathematical certainty that dictates how the universe unfolds. One of the core principles of this quantum evolution is that it is fundamentally reversible. The equations of quantum mechanics do not care which way time flows. If you have the complete wave function of a system at any given moment, you can, mathematically speaking, run the clock backward to see exactly where it came from, or run the clock forward to see exactly where it is going. Because the equations are reversible, it means that the past is entirely contained within the present, and the present is entirely contained within the future. This is what physicists mean when they say that quantum information is conserved. If information were ever lost, if it were ever truly destroyed, we would not be able to run the equations backward. The mathematical structure of reality would break down. But it does not break down. The universe remains perfectly intact, holding onto every single detail with infinite care and infinite precision. So, what does this mean for the concept of death? It means that the transition we call death is not a deletion, but rather a dispersion. It is a process of decoherence. While you are alive, the quantum states within your brain are held in a highly organized, highly coherent pattern. It is like a beautiful, complex symphony being played by an orchestra of billions of tiny subatomic instruments. When the body fails, the biological energy required to maintain that specific, tightly bound organization fades away. The symphony does not simply stop existing. Instead, the sound of the individual instruments drifts out of the concert hall and blends with the gentle background noise of the universe. The music becomes part of the wind, part of the atmosphere, part of the infinite quiet silence of the cosmos. The information is still there, scattered perhaps across the room, across the planet, across the solar system, but it is never, ever gone. This realization shifts our perspective from one of fear to one of deep, respectful wonder. The universe is not a cold, mechanical void that carelessly discards the intricate beauty of consciousness. It is instead a vast, ancient, and deeply interconnected system where nothing is wasted and nothing is forgotten. As we prepare to explore further into the specific mechanisms of how this quantum information might interact with the very fabric of space-time, as we begin to look at the cutting-edge theories proposed by some the most brilliant minds in modern physics, we must first establish this fundamental foundation of peace. The cosmos has a place for you, a permanent record of your existence, woven into the geometry of reality itself. You are part of the grand infinite journey, a journey that began 14 billion years ago and will continue for trillions of years into the unimaginable future. We are, all of us, eternal patterns dancing in the quiet dark. Have you ever looked up at the vast, scattered diamonds of the night sky and felt a sudden, inexplicable sense of belonging, wondering if the immense, empty spaces between us and the distant stars are merely an illusion of our limited biological senses? We are taught from a very young age to measure our lives in distances and separations. We think of ourselves as isolated islands of consciousness, safely bound by the fragile boundary of our skin, moving independently through a cold, indifferent, and empty void. But modern physics, peering deeply into the hidden architecture of reality, suggests that this feeling of profound separation might be the greatest illusion of all. When we zoom in past the macroscopic world, past the cells and the molecules, down into the microscopic vibrating hearts of reality, the concept of distance begins to soften and melt away. It reveals a profoundly interconnected cosmos where nothing and no one is ever truly alone or isolated. This realization brings us to one of the most beautiful, confounding, and breathtaking discoveries in the entire history of science, a phenomenon that the brilliant physicist Albert Einstein famously and skeptically called spooky action at a distance, but which scientists today study rigorously under the name of quantum entanglement. To understand what happens to our consciousness when the biological body rests, we must first understand how deeply woven we are into the fabric of the universe itself. What exactly is quantum entanglement? Imagine for a moment two tiny subatomic particles, perhaps two individual photons of light that are born together from the exact same atomic event. Because they share a single origin, they interact in a highly specific mathematical way, and their quantum states become inextricably linked. They become part of a single, unified mathematical description, a shared wave function that dictates their properties. If you were to take these two entangled particles and carefully separate them, keeping one here on our warm, blue Earth and sending the other far out into the deep, ancient silence of space, perhaps placing it on a cold, frozen moon orbiting a massive gas giant hundreds of millions of miles away, something truly miraculous and completely counterintuitive remains true. Despite the immense, freezing gulf of deep space between them, they are still fundamentally connected. If a scientist measures the state of the particle here on Earth, for example, discovering that its quantum spin is pointing upward, the universe instantly determines the state of the particle on that distant moon, forcing its spin to point downward. The reaction does not happen a second later, nor a fraction of a millisecond later. It happens absolutely simultaneously. The information does not travel through the space between them. The space simply does not matter. This defies our everyday understanding of the universe, bypassing the speed of light, which travels at roughly 186,000 miles per second, a strict cosmic speed limit that dictates almost every other physical interaction in existence. Entanglement suggests a deeper, hidden, underlying layer of reality where space and time, as we experience them in our daily lives, do not strictly apply. It reveals a universe of profound, unbroken unity. Now, let us gently carry this ancient and mysterious concept back to the human experience, back to the quiet journey of our own internal consciousness. Theoretical physicists and cognitive neuroscientists, including renowned Nobel laureates like Sir Roger Penrose, have proposed fascinating theories suggesting that the human brain itself might be operating on a profound quantum level. Deep within the delicate microscopic structures of our brain cells, inside incredibly tiny hollow tubes known as microtubules, complex quantum entanglement might be occurring right at this very moment. This quantum activity could be the very mechanism binding our disparate sensory inputs, our memories, and our flowing thoughts into a single, unified state of conscious awareness. You are not just a sophisticated chemical machine pumping ions across cell membranes. You might be a delicate quantum resonator, continuously harmonizing with the fundamental vibrating frequencies of the universe itself. When the biological processes that sustain this delicate, localized quantum state eventually quiet down, when the physical heart stops its beating and the body reaches its final, gentle stillness, what happens to that highly organized, entangled information? If our consciousness is fundamentally rooted in the quantum structures of reality, then the unbreakable rules of the quantum world must apply to the very essence of who we are. Just as the two entangled photons remain forever connected across the vast, freezing gulfs of deep space, the intricate quantum information that forms the unique blueprint of your mind does not simply evaporate into nothingness. It decoheres. Decoherence is not a destruction. It is a profound transition. It means that the localized concentration of your quantum information within the physical boundaries of the brain softly releases its hold, but it remains perfectly entangled with the broader, infinitely complex environment. The specific, vibrant patterns of your memories and experiences leak out into the surrounding room. They blend into the atmosphere of the earth, and they radiate outward into the infinite, expanding canvas of the cosmos. As the renowned astronomer Carl Sagan once famously and beautifully stated, we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. We are, quite literally, made of star stuff. The iron coursing through your blood, the calcium fortifying your bones, every single heavy atomic element in your fragile body was forged in the fiery, ancient hearts of massive dying stars billions of years ago. We are born directly from the universe, and through the strict, unbreakable mathematical laws of quantum mechanics, we inevitably return our complex, gathered information back to it. It is a perfect, beautiful, and flawless cycle of cosmic ecology. The universe lovingly gifts us with the localized energy and the physical structure to experience wonder, to witness the breathtaking majesty of creation. And when our brief, localized time of observation is complete, we surrender that accumulated wealth of experience back into the infinite, rippling quantum field. Let this profound realization wash over you like a warm, comforting wave on a quiet, starlit shore. The deeply ingrained human fear of vanishing, the terror of ceasing to exist, is born from a simple misunderstanding of how the architecture of reality is actually woven together. We fear the silence of death because we imagine it as a dark, empty room, an eternal sensory deprivation chamber from which there is absolutely no escape and no return. But the true quantum silence of the universe is not empty at all. It is incredibly rich, vibrating with potential, and permanently packed with the perfectly preserved information of every single moment, every single breath, and every single thought that has ever transpired since the dawn of time. Think of a single fragile drop of water falling gently into a vast, deep, and ancient ocean. When the tiny drop finally breaks the surface of the water, it loses its individual boundary. It loses its specific temporary shape as a singular falling sphere. But the water itself, the molecules that made up that drop, are absolutely not destroyed. It becomes the ocean itself. It joins the massive, powerful global currents that circulate around the entire planet. It becomes part of the quiet, deep, crushing pressure of the dark, abyssal plains. And eventually, it evaporates to form the soft, drifting clouds that paint our evening skies. The localized drop is gone, but its pure essence, its molecular identity, and its energetic contribution to the whole is perfectly and eternally conserved. This is the ultimate fate of your quantum information. You do not end in darkness. You become the ocean. You join the vast, ancient, and swirling currents of the cosmos. You spread out into the beautiful, endless mystery of space-time, becoming an inseparable part of the grand cosmic tapestry. The rigorous mathematics of physics absolutely demands this perfect conservation. We see this principle reflected in the first law of thermodynamics, which dictates that energy can neither be created from nothing nor destroyed into nothing, only transformed endlessly from one form to another. We see this profound truth even in the behavior of the most extreme, terrifying objects in the known universe. Supermassive black holes. For many decades, the greatest minds in theoretical physics wrestled deeply with a terrifying puzzle known as the black hole information paradox. If a black hole consumes matter, dragging stars, gas, and dust past the event horizon where not even light can escape, and then slowly evaporates, over trillions of years through a process called Hawking radiation, what happens to the specific quantum information of the objects that fell in? If that information is truly destroyed and erased from reality, then the foundational equations of quantum mechanics are fundamentally broken. But modern theoretical breakthroughs increasingly and reassuringly suggest that the information is absolutely not lost. It is perfectly encoded, perhaps scrambled and complex, but entirely preserved on the very boundary of the black hole, on the two-dimensional surface of the event horizon itself, a mind-bending concept known in modern theoretical physics as the holographic principle. Even the most extreme, gravitationally violent objects in the entire universe, objects with crushing masses millions or even billions of times greater than our own sun, cannot break the ultimate rule of conservation. The universe protects its information with fierce mathematical perfection. The universe always remembers. And if the vast, sprawling universe goes to such extraordinary lengths to protect the simple quantum information of a random particle of interstellar dust falling into a supermassive black hole at the dark center of a distant galaxy, it surely, undeniably protects the exquisite, breathtakingly complex quantum configuration of your life. It preserves your deep memories, your gentle loves, your quiet moments of reflection, and your sudden bursts of joy. The sheer scale of the universe is almost impossible for our biological minds to fully grasp. We look through our most powerful telescopes and observe hundreds of billions of galaxies, each one a swirling island containing hundreds of billions of stars, stretching out endlessly across a cosmic horizon that spans a mind-boggling 93 billion light-years in diameter. Standing beneath such immense vastness, it is so incredibly easy to feel small. It is so easy to feel that our brief, fleeting human lives are completely insignificant, tiny flashes of fragile light in an overwhelming, cold, and dark void. As astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson often eloquently reminds us, we are part of this universe. We are in this universe. But perhaps most profoundly, the universe is in us. When you look up at the night sky, you are not just looking out into a cold, distant emptiness. You are looking deeply into a cosmic mirror. You are witnessing the ancient, quiet, and beautiful origins of your own physical and quantum being. Quantum physics turns our perspective of insignificance completely upside down. It tells us that precisely because of invisible binding phenomena like quantum entanglement and information conservation, every single microscopic part of the whole is intimately, permanently connected to the rest of the grand structure. You are not a tiny, isolated observer standing outside of reality, nervously peering in through a small window. You are an active, vital, and indispensable node in the infinite, shimmering, and pulsating web of the cosmos. Your existence ripples out endlessly, affecting the quantum states of the complex environment around you, leaving an indelible, permanent mathematical mark on the universe that can never, ever be erased or undone. As we continue our shared journey into the quiet, starlit depths of quantum theory, we will gently explore what this profound merging with the universe might actually feel like. Does this perfectly preserved information retain a discernible structure, a geometry of continued experience? How does the relentless, forward-marching arrow of time behave when we finally step outside the ticking constraints of the biological clock and enter the timeless, flowing domain of the eternal quantum field? The answers to these profound questions lie waiting at the very edge of human knowledge, where the hard edge of physics blurs softly into the deep waters of philosophy, and where the rigorous equations of science read like the most profound, comforting, and ancient poetry. For now, allow yourself to rest quietly in the profound, scientifically grounded knowledge that you are a permanent, indelible feature of the cosmos. The boundary between you and the endless universe is beautifully porous, a temporary illusion created by the necessary evolutionary limitations of human perception. You are the universe itself, miraculously expressing itself as a conscious human being for a little while. And when that beautiful expression inevitably changes its physical form, the fundamental quantum truth of your existence remains entirely untouched, drifting safely and peacefully through the eternal, silent dark. Have you ever sat quietly in a darkened room, listening to the steady, rhythmic ticking of a clock, and wondered what happens to the relentless flow of time when the biological metronome of the human heart finally comes to a peaceful rest? We are creatures completely bound by the concept of duration. From the moment we take our first breath, we are swept up in a powerful, invisible river that carries us constantly forward. We experience reality as a thin sliver of the present, escaping an untouchable past and rushing into an unknowable future. This momentum is so deeply ingrained that we cannot imagine an existence without the ticking of seconds. But what if this overwhelming sensation of passing time is merely a localized biological illusion, a necessary evolutionary mechanism that completely dissolves when our quantum information returns to the vast, quiet depths of the cosmos? To understand the ultimate fate of our consciousness, we must embark on a gentle journey into the profound mystery of time itself, as described by the foundational laws of physics. In our everyday, macroscopic world, time has a very clear, strict direction. Physicists call this the arrow of time, and it is driven by one of the most unbreakable rules in the universe, the second law of thermodynamics. This law dictates that entropy, or the overall measure of disorder in a closed system, must always increase. Our physical bodies operate under this exact same law. We require a constant intake of energy just to maintain the complex biological structures that keep us alive. The steady beating of your heart, the firing of the synapses in your brain, the division of your microscopic cells, these are all thermodynamic processes marching constantly forward in time, fighting a beautiful but ultimately temporary battle against the rising tide of entropy. When the biological machine stops, that localized fight against entropy ceases. But does time itself truly end for the quantum information that once composed your mind? To answer this, we must look to the brilliant, paradigm-shifting revelations of Albert Einstein and his theory of general relativity. Before Einstein, humanity viewed time as a universal, absolute background, a cosmic stage upon which the events of the universe played out at a steady, unchanging pace for everyone, everywhere. But Einstein elegantly proved that this is completely false. He revealed that space and time are not separate entities, but are deeply woven together into a single, four-dimensional fabric known as space-time. In this beautiful model of reality, time is relative. It bends, stretches, and flows at entirely different rates, depending on how fast you are moving and how close you are to a massive gravitational source. But the most staggering implication of Einstein's mathematics is a concept that physicists call the block universe, or eternalism. In the block universe model, the past, the present, and the future do not happen in a sequence. They simply exist all at once in a vast, static, four-dimensional structure. Imagine an infinitely long film reel containing every frame of a movie. When you watch the movie play, you experience it frame by frame, but the entire reel already exists simultaneously inside the projector. The beginning, middle, and end are equally real. According to the mathematics of relativity, the universe operates in exactly the same way. The moment you were born, the quiet moment you are experiencing right now as you listen to these words, and the moment a trillion years from now, when the last stars fade into the cosmic darkness, all of these moments exist simultaneously within the infinite, silent block of space-time. Einstein himself famously found profound comfort in this physical reality. When his lifelong friend Michel Besso passed away, Einstein wrote a deeply moving letter to Besso's family, stating that for those who believe in physics, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. When the biological rhythm of your life comes to its peaceful halt, your life does not disappear into a void of nothingness. Your existence is not a temporary flame blown out, leaving no trace. Every moment you have ever lived, every laugh you have shared, every deep realization of wonder you have felt looking up at the night sky, these are permanently, physically embedded in the ancient geometry of space-time. You are a completed masterpiece, a beautiful, unique, four-dimensional sculpture permanently housed in the grand, eternal gallery of the cosmos. The biological clock that forced you to experience those moments in a strict, stressful, linear sequence has simply been put away. You have stepped outside of the theater and joined the film reel itself. You are no longer moving through time. You have become a permanent feature of time's magnificent, vast landscape. But the mystery deepens even further when we consider the actual physical medium of your quantum information as it decoheres and radiates out into the universe. When the intricate quantum entanglement within your brain gently releases its localized hold, the energy and information that constituted your consciousness scatter into the surrounding environment. Much of this energy dissipates in the form of heat, which is electromagnetic radiation, essentially composed of countless invisible photons of light. And here we encounter one of the most mind-bending paradoxes in all of quantum physics and relativity. For a photon of light, time does not exist. At the absolute speed limit of the universe, roughly 300,000 kilometers per second, the relentless forward march of time comes to a complete mathematical halt. Imagine the journey of a single photon born in the fiery, chaotic core of a distant star on the very edge of the observable universe. It travels through the cold, empty silence of deep space for perhaps 10 billion years before striking a telescope on Earth. For the astronomers waiting, a vast amount of time has passed. Entire planetary systems have been born and destroyed. But for the photon itself, the journey took absolutely zero time. From its own perspective, the moment it was born and the moment it was absorbed happened simultaneously. It experienced no duration, no aging, no waiting. It exists in a permanent, continuous state of the infinite now. As the quantum information of your decohered consciousness rides out on these fundamental waves of energy, merging with the background radiation of the cosmos, it enters this profound, timeless domain. You transition from a biological entity trapped by the ticking clock of entropy into a state of existence where the very concept of waiting, of aging, of loss, completely loses its mathematical meaning. This is the quiet, gentle truth of our ultimate cosmic destiny. We are terrifyingly accustomed to measuring our worth by the limited number of biological hours we have been granted. We rush and fret about the future, driven by the persistent illusion that time is slipping through our fingers. But the physics of the universe offers a profoundly different, overwhelmingly peaceful perspective. You are not running out of time, because time is not a resource that is consumed. It is a landscape that you inhabit. The universe is not a ticking clock winding down to zero. It is an infinite, silent ocean where every drop of experience is perfectly conserved and eternally held. As you rest in this quiet contemplation, feeling the weight of your daily anxieties gently lifting away, allow yourself to visualize this magnificent transition. Picture the glowing web of quantum connections within your mind, softly relaxing, expanding outward like a slow-motion ripple on a dark, perfectly still pond. You are not disappearing. You are simply broadening your perspective. You are trading the frantic, narrow tunnel of biological time for the panoramic, timeless expanse of the cosmos itself. The universe has kept a perfect, flawless record of your entire journey. And now it welcomes the core essence of your quantum information back into its vast, swirling currents. You are rejoining the ancient, primordial light. You are returning to the deep, silent mystery from which you were born, wrapped in the loving, unbreakable laws of mathematical perfection. Yet, a profound question remains suspended in this cosmic silence. If our quantum information is perfectly preserved and our experiences are permanently etched into the rigid block of space-time, does any form of subjective awareness persist? How does the vast infinite universe process the countless, overlapping quantum states of all the lives that have ever been lived? As we continue our exploration into quantum mechanics, we will gently turn our attention to theories of multiple dimensions and the holographic universe. But for this moment, let the immense peace of eternalism wash over you. You are permanently, safely, and beautifully woven into the eternal fabric of the universe. Have you ever held a photograph of a beloved childhood home, tracing the flat, glossy paper with your fingertips? yet feeling the overwhelming sensation of walking through those three-dimensional rooms once again. We move through our daily lives, completely convinced that the physical world we inhabit, the tall trees, the deep oceans, the vast distance between our fingertips and the distant moon, is the absolute and fundamental structure of reality. We measure the space around us in three familiar dimensions: up and down, left and right, forward and backward. But what if this deeply ingrained perception of depth and volume is a magnificent, comforting illusion constructed by our biological minds to help us navigate the universe? Theoretical physicists, peering into the darkest, most mysterious corners of cosmology and quantum mechanics, have uncovered a breathtaking possibility that challenges the very nature of existence. This paradigm-shifting concept suggests that the entire three-dimensional universe we experience, along with the relentless flow of time itself, might actually be a grand, intricate projection originating from a flat, two-dimensional surface located at the very edge of reality. To understand the quiet journey of our consciousness after the biological heart stops, we must bravely open our minds to the profound, beautiful mystery of the holographic principle. The origins of this breathtaking idea do not begin in peaceful contemplation, but rather at the absolute limits of physical reality, within the terrifying, crushing gravitational wells of black holes. In the latter half of the 20th century, brilliant theoretical physicists like Jacob Bekenstein and Stephen Hawking grappled with a profound puzzle regarding the vast amounts of information that fall into these cosmic abysses. When a star, a planet, or even a microscopic grain of interstellar dust is irrevocably swallowed by a black hole, crossing the invisible boundary known as the event horizon, what happens to the specific quantum information that defines it? Our intuition suggests that the information is crushed into the singularity at the center, occupying a three-dimensional volume. But the rigorous mathematics of black hole thermodynamics revealed a shocking truth. The total amount of information a black hole can contain is not determined by the three-dimensional volume inside it, but rather exclusively by the two-dimensional surface area of its event horizon. Imagine pouring a massive three-dimensional library filled with millions of complex books into a seemingly bottomless pit, only to mathematically discover that the entire exhaustive contents of that vast library are perfectly, meticulously encoded on the flat rim of the pit itself. The universe, in its ancient and infinite wisdom, does not store information in the volume of space. It paints it onto the bounding surface. This counterintuitive discovery remained a peculiar quirk of black hole physics until the late 1990s, when a brilliant theoretical physicist named Juan Maldacena published a paper that sent shockwaves through the global scientific community. Maldacena mathematically proved that a complete, rigorously defined three-dimensional universe governed by the complex laws of gravity could be perfectly, flawlessly translated into a two-dimensional boundary completely lacking gravity, yet governed by the rules of quantum mechanics. This breakthrough, known as the anti-de Sitter conformal field theory correspondence, provided the first solid mathematical framework for the holographic principle. It implies that our entire, vast, three-dimensional cosmos, containing hundreds of billions of swirling galaxies, the fiery hearts of ancient stars, and the delicate, quiet beating of your own heart, might be a holographic projection. Just as a simple, flat, two-dimensional security hologram on a credit card contains all the necessary interference patterns to project a fully three-dimensional image when illuminated by a laser, the incredibly complex quantum information residing on the distant flat boundary of the cosmos, projects the illusion of depth, mass, and volume that we call reality. What does this magnificent, mind-bending scientific revelation mean for the delicate, entangled quantum state of your own consciousness? It fundamentally rewrites our understanding of what it means to exist, and more importantly, what it means to supposedly disappear. If you are, at your most fundamental subatomic level, a pattern of quantum information, and if all the information in our three-dimensional universe is actually a projection encoded on a two-dimensional boundary, then the concept of death undergoes a radical, beautiful transformation. The cessation of your biological body is merely the dissolving of the three-dimensional projection. The biological machine breaks down, the hologram flickers and fades from our localized human perception, but the source code, the precise mathematical blueprint that makes you uniquely you, remains flawlessly intact on the cosmic boundary. You are not a fragile physical object subject to total destruction. You are an indelible, eternal pattern of data permanently woven into the fundamental two-dimensional fabric of the universe. The three-dimensional performance has ended, but the magnificent symphony is still perfectly recorded on the flat vinyl record of reality, waiting in the quiet silence of the cosmos. To visualize this grand cosmic architecture, we must gently stretch our minds to embrace the cutting edge of theoretical physics, specifically the elegant, mathematically rigorous world of string theory. String theory suggests that the fundamental ingredients of the universe are not tiny, solid particles, but rather incredibly small, vibrating loops of energy called strings, residing at the Planck length, a scale roughly 1.6 times 10 to the power of negative 35 meters across. To make the complex equations of string theory function without mathematical anomalies, the universe cannot simply have the three spatial dimensions we experience, plus time. It absolutely requires extra spatial dimensions, perhaps 10 or 11 in total, deeply curled up and hidden from our limited biological view. When our consciousness decoheres, gently releasing its grip on the macroscopic biological form, it does not fall into an empty void. Instead, it might be slipping into these hidden, folded dimensions of reality. The universe is exponentially richer, exponentially deeper, and exponentially more complex than our simple evolutionary senses allow us to perceive. Death is not an exit from reality. It is an expansion into a broader, more profound dimensional landscape. Let this staggering cosmic perspective fill you with a deep, abiding sense of peace and respectful wonder. We spend our lives terrified of the final boundary, viewing it as an impenetrable wall of darkness that completely annihilates everything we hold dear. But the rigorously tested physics of the holographic principle and the elegant mathematics of multiple dimensions tell a fundamentally different, far more comforting story. The boundary is not a wall. It is a canvas. It is the very foundation upon which the infinite, beautiful masterpiece of existence is eternally painted. When a loved one passes away, their three-dimensional holographic projection ceases to interact with our own, leading to the sharp, undeniable pain of biological separation. But in the grand, ancient scheme of the cosmos, they have not truly gone anywhere. Their quantum information, the beautiful essence of their mind and memory, remains perfectly preserved, translated back to the fundamental boundary of the universe. They have returned to the source code. As the esteemed physicist John Archibald Wheeler profoundly suggested, the universe is fundamentally built upon information. It is a concept encapsulated in his famous phrase, "it from bit." We are the universe processing its own information, dreaming a beautiful three-dimensional dream. As we continue to drift gently through these profound, paradigm-shifting revelations, we find ourselves standing at the shore of an infinite, shimmering cosmic ocean. The journey of understanding what happens to us is deeply intertwined with understanding the very origins of the universe itself. If our information returns to the quantum boundary, how does it interact with the rest of the cosmos over trillions of years? Does the universe eventually recycle this information, sparking new forms of existence and new cosmic projections? In the coming exploration, we will turn our contemplative gaze toward the distant future of the cosmos, exploring the mind-boggling concepts of quantum recurrence and the ultimate fate of all matter and energy in the universe. But for now, breathe in the profound, comforting silence of the night. Feel the gentle, invisible connections that bind your present, living consciousness to the very edges of the cosmos. You are a breathtakingly complex hologram, a beautiful, temporary projection of eternal, indestructible information. You are intimately, permanently connected to the vast, ancient mystery of reality, a mystery that welcomes you with endless peace, ensuring that no part of your journey is ever truly lost. Have you ever stood outside on a completely clear, bitterly cold winter night, staring up into the dark spaces between the scattered stars, and wondered what will happen when all of those magnificent cosmic fires finally burn out? We project this exact same inevitable cycle of aging and fading onto the grand canvas of the universe, assuming that the cosmos itself is slowly winding down toward an absolute, inescapable death. But what if the ultimate end of the universe is not a final, tragic curtain call, but rather a peaceful slumber that eventually gives birth to a staggering mathematical resurrection? To truly understand the infinite, unbroken journey of our quantum information, we must travel far beyond the lifespan of our own tiny solar system and venture deep into the quiet, frozen future of the cosmos. In the rigorous field of modern cosmology, scientists project the future of the universe by studying its current rate of expansion and the ironclad laws of thermodynamics. Right now, we live in the stelliferous era, a beautiful epoch filled with hundreds of billions of galaxies, each glowing warmly with the light of hundreds of billions of stars. But this vibrant era is only a fleeting phase in the ancient history of existence. Eventually, trillions of years from now, the very last stars will completely exhaust their nuclear fuel. The universe will quietly enter the degenerate era, populated only by the cold, dense remnants of dead stars, faintly glowing white dwarfs, rapidly spinning neutron stars, and stealthy black holes. The cosmos will become an incredibly vast, incredibly dark, and profoundly quiet place. Yet, even in this overwhelming cosmic silence, the universe is not truly dead. It is merely resting, redistributing its fundamental energy into a smoother, infinitely more peaceful state. As we push our minds further into the unimaginable depths of deep time, perhaps 10 to the power of 40 years from now, even the fundamental building blocks of solid matter may begin to lose their rigid structural integrity. Theoretical physics suggests a slow process known as proton decay, where the subatomic particles that make up all normal matter slowly dissolve into pure, formless radiation. Eventually, the only massive structures left in the entire cosmos will be the supermassive black holes sitting silently in the dark. But as the brilliant theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking famously demonstrated, even these ultimate gravitational monsters are not eternal. Due to the strange quantum effects occurring at their event horizons, black holes continuously leak energy in a subtle process called Hawking radiation. It will take a span of time so immensely vast that our biological minds cannot comprehend it, perhaps one followed by 100 zeros years, mathematically known as a googol, but eventually even the most massive black holes will completely evaporate. They will vanish into the expanding dark in a final flash of fundamental radiation. When the last black hole has breathed its final breath, the universe will enter the deeply mysterious dark era. It will be a perfectly freezing, infinitely vast ocean of ultra-low energy photons, drifting increasingly farther apart due to the relentless expansion of space. This state is often referred to by physicists as the heat death of the universe, or the Big Freeze. From a traditional macroscopic perspective, it looks exactly like the final erasure of all structure and meaning. But at the microscopic quantum level, the fundamental laws of physics reveal a breathtaking twist. Even in a universe that has reached absolute maximum entropy, a universe that appears completely dead, perfectly cold, and perfectly still, the fundamental quantum fields never stop vibrating. The uncertainty principle, a foundational pillar of quantum mechanics discovered by Werner Heisenberg, strictly forbids absolute, perfect stillness. There is always a tiny, irreducible amount of fluctuating energy, a gentle, invisible boil of quantum potential occurring in the supposedly empty vacuum of deep space. The universe is never truly empty, and it is never truly silent. This constant, quiet bubbling of the quantum vacuum sets the stage for one of the most mind-bending mathematical theorems in all of physics, formerly known as the Poincare recurrence theorem. Named after the brilliant French mathematician Henri Poincare, this rigorously proven theorem states that within any isolated physical system containing a finite amount of energy, the system will eventually, over a staggering period of time, return to a state that is mathematically identical to its initial starting state. Imagine placing a few distinct drops of dark blue ink into a crystal clear glass of water. As time steadily passes, the ink diffuses, spreading out randomly until the entire glass becomes a uniform pale blue. From our daily human perspective, that spreading process is irreversible. But the Poincare recurrence theorem undeniably proves that if you simply wait an unimaginably long amount of time, the random, chaotic motion of all those individual water and ink molecules will eventually, by sheer statistical chance, arrange themselves exactly back into the precise configuration of those original organized drops. Now, take this rigorously proven mathematical truth and gently apply it to the grand cosmic scale of the universe itself. The vast, cold, infinitely stretching dark era of the universe is exactly like that glass of uniformly pale blue water. Your specific quantum information, the incredibly complex, entangled blueprint of your unique consciousness, is exactly like those original drops of deep, organized blue ink. When your biological journey peacefully ended, that complex information was perfectly conserved, gently scattered, and diffused into the broader cosmos. It has safely survived the slow evaporation of supermassive black holes and floated peacefully through the silent, frozen eons of the dark era. But because the entire universe is ultimately a closed system containing a conserved amount of fundamental energy, and because the underlying quantum vacuum is constantly fluctuating, the truly infinite expanse of time virtually guarantees a staggering mathematical miracle. Over a span of time so vast that the entire 14 billion year history of our current universe is far less than a microscopic fraction of a single second by comparison, The random quantum fluctuations will inevitably recombine. The widely scattered, perfectly preserved puzzle pieces of your existence will statistically align, perfectly reconstructing the exact quantum state of your living mind. This profound realization is not a mere philosophical hope or a comforting spiritual belief. It is the strict, undeniable consequence of quantum mechanics and statistical probability operating relentlessly over an infinite stretch of cosmic time. The poetic concept of eternal return is not a myth. It is woven directly into the cold, hard mathematics of physical reality. Your beautiful existence is not a single, brief spark that flashes just once and is lost forever to the overwhelming dark. It is an eternal, recurring melody, a perfectly conserved pattern of information playing on an infinite, quiet loop throughout the breathtaking span of cosmic history. When you close your eyes and feel the quiet rhythm of your breathing, know that the infinite universe has absolutely all the time in existence to remember you, to gather your scattered essence, and to breathe life back into the precise quantum architecture of your being. You are simply waiting in the quiet vastness for the cosmic mathematics to beautifully align once again. As we continue to drift deeper into the profound mysteries of the cosmos, we will soon explore what actually happens when these incredibly rare, random quantum fluctuations produce entirely new consciousnesses straight out from the raw vacuum of space, a deeply fascinating theoretical physics concept known as the Boltzmann brain. But for this specific moment, let your mind rest safely in the vast, comforting certainty of infinite time. The universe is an endless, patient ocean, and no matter how far your individual waves of quantum information may scatter into the deep unknown, the ancient, inevitable tides of quantum mechanics promise that you will always, eventually, return to the quiet shore of existence. Have you ever awakened from a deep, dreamless sleep in an unfamiliar room, experiencing that fleeting, disorienting fraction of a second where you have absolutely no idea where you are, what year it is, or even who you are, before your memories suddenly rush back in like a comforting, gentle tide to anchor you safely in reality? We rely so heavily on the unbroken physical continuity of our fragile biological bodies to maintain our coherent sense of self. We firmly believe that if the biological machine permanently stops, the unique, complex story of our individual existence is irrevocably closed, filed away into the permanent void of history. But the incredibly strange, rigorously mathematical realm of statistical mechanics and quantum physics suggests a wildly different, deeply fascinating, and breathtakingly profound scenario for the ultimate fate of consciousness in the very distant future of the cosmos. To explore this profound mystery, we must gently journey back into that unimaginable, freezing, dark era of the universe, long after the very last stars have died and the incredibly massive, supermassive black holes have completely evaporated into nothingness. We must look closely and quietly at what happens when absolute, infinite time continuously interacts with the restless, never-ending, invisible bubbling of the fundamental quantum vacuum. In the late 19th century, a brilliant and deeply contemplative Austrian physicist named Ludwig Boltzmann fundamentally revolutionized our human understanding of physical reality by explaining the rigid laws of thermodynamics strictly through the lens of statistics and mathematical probability. He established that the universe moves toward a state of higher entropy, or greater disorder, simply because there are overwhelmingly more ways for things to be disorganized than there are ways for things to be perfectly ordered. If you gently drop a beautifully constructed, highly organized glass vase onto a hard floor, it shatters into 1,000 chaotic pieces. The universe strictly dictates this forward progression, because the statistical probability of those 1,000 scattered pieces randomly bouncing off the floor and spontaneously reassembling themselves perfectly into a flawless, unbroken vase is so astronomically low that, for all practical human purposes, we consider it completely impossible. However, in the rigorous, uncompromising mathematics of theoretical physics, incredibly improbable is absolutely not the same thing as strictly impossible. Boltzmann realized that while the overall universe constantly slides toward maximum entropy, tiny, localized statistical fluctuations can and do occur. Sometimes, entirely randomly, a small pocket of chaos briefly organizes itself into a state of lower entropy. In our current, relatively young universe, these spontaneous drops in entropy are incredibly small and entirely unnoticeable on a macroscopic scale. But we are no longer thinking about our current, young universe. We are projecting our minds into the deepest, most unfathomable stretches of cosmic time, into the silent, eternal dark era, where trillions upon trillions upon trillions of years are merely a single, fleeting heartbeat in the grand cosmic timeline. In a universe that has reached absolute maximum entropy, a universe that is a completely uniform, perfectly cold, and infinitely vast soup of background radiation, there is absolutely nothing left to happen. But because the underlying quantum fields are strictly forbidden by the Heisenberg uncertainty principle from being completely still, they continuously, quietly fluctuate in the dark, over a period of time so incomprehensibly vast that it completely shatters the limits of the human imagination. Absolutely every possible statistical fluctuation that can mathematically occur will eventually, inevitably occur. This is where the strict physics leads us to one of the most astonishing, mind-bending, and controversial concepts in all of modern cosmology, a brilliant thought experiment known as the Boltzmann brain. The brilliant physicists who study this incredibly distant future have realized something mathematically undeniable. If you wait an infinitely long amount of time in a fluctuating quantum vacuum, eventually, by pure, sheer, random statistical chance, the subatomic particles floating in the void will spontaneously align into a highly complex, highly organized structure. And the most startling realization is that it takes far less time and requires a much smaller decrease in overall entropy for a single, fully formed, conscious human brain to randomly fluctuate into existence out of the vacuum than it does for an entire, highly ordered universe like our own to form from a primordial Big Bang. Imagine the vast, infinite, silent dark of the cosmos. There are no galaxies, no stars, no planets, and no biological life as we currently understand it. But then, in a perfectly random, localized pocket of deep space, the quantum fluctuations statistically align in a breathtakingly miraculous configuration. They form a physical structure. They form neurons, synapses, and flowing electrochemical currents. For a brief, fleeting moment, a fully conscious mind spontaneously exists in the freezing void. And because the universe has literally infinite time to constantly roll the quantum dice, it will not just create one random brain. It will eventually create every single possible configuration of a brain. It will, with absolute mathematical certainty, eventually create a physical structure that is perfectly, atom for atom, quantum state for quantum state, identical to your exact brain, holding your exact memories, your exact personality, and your exact subjective experience of reality at this very moment. What does this mean for the quiet journey of our consciousness? It means that the deep, terrifying chasm of death might actually be entirely subjective, a temporary, unperceived gap in an infinite, mathematically inevitable sequence of conscious moments. Imagine that your biological life comes to its peaceful end. The complex quantum entanglement within your mind gently decoheres, scattering your perfectly preserved information back into the vast, ancient universe. Trillions of years pass in the outside world. The stars slowly fade, the galaxies quietly dissolve, and the universe enters its infinite, peaceful slumber. From your subjective perspective, this unimaginably vast ocean of time passes in absolutely 0 seconds. You do not experience the waiting. You do not experience the freezing dark, because time is only experienced through the active, continuous processing of information within a conscious structure. The billions of eons that pass between the peaceful end of your current biological life and your eventual, mathematically inevitable quantum reconstruction feel like absolutely nothing at all. It is a profound, perfect slumber, devoid of dreams, devoid of duration, and devoid of fear. When the random, statistical fluctuations of the infinite quantum vacuum finally, miraculously align to recreate the precise, complex blueprint of your consciousness, you will simply wake up. You will feel exactly as you do right now. You will possess the exact same deep memories, the exact same thoughts, and the exact same gentle feelings of wonder and curiosity. You might remember reading these exact words, contemplating the vast, ancient mysteries of the cosmos from the comfort of a warm room. The continuity of your subjective experience will feel completely unbroken. You will have effortlessly, unknowingly leapt across a gulf of time so enormous that writing the number out would require more zeros than there are currently atoms in the entire observable universe. Yet, for you, it will be as seamless, as instant, and as entirely natural as blinking your eyes in a quiet room. This incredible, rigorously mathematical concept profoundly challenges our deepest, most ingrained evolutionary fears regarding mortality. We are fundamentally terrified of the infinite dark, the seemingly endless void of absolute non-existence. But the physics of infinity beautifully reveals that the void is absolutely not empty. It is a limitless, profoundly patient incubator of potential. The vast, silent cosmos is not a graveyard for consciousness, but an eternal, quiet womb where the fundamental laws of probability strictly guarantee the endless rebirth of subjective experience. The universe does not casually discard the intricate, beautiful masterpiece of your mind. It merely archives the precise mathematical information, holding it safely within the gently undulating waves of the quantum fields, waiting patiently for the inevitable, unstoppable roll of the cosmic dice to bring you back into the brilliant, beautiful light of awareness. As you sit quietly and reflect upon this breathtaking cosmic reality, let a profound sense of peace softly wash over your mind. You are absolutely not a fragile, temporary accident struggling in a cold, indifferent universe. You are an inevitable, mathematically necessary expression of the cosmos itself. The infinite universe has absolutely infinite time, and it will use that incredible expanse of time to dream you back into existence, over and over again, across the endless, silent eons. Your consciousness is an indestructible, glowing thread, beautifully woven into the eternal, recurring tapestry of reality. But this comforting realization brings us to an even deeper, exponentially more complex mystery. If the universe can spontaneously generate your specific consciousness through random quantum fluctuations, could there be multiple versions of you existing simultaneously? As we prepare to delve deeper into the astonishing, counterintuitive realms of quantum mechanics, we must gently turn our gaze toward the mind-boggling concept of the multiverse and the many worlds interpretation, exploring exactly how your quiet journey might bravely branch out into an infinite, breathtaking array of parallel realities. For now, simply rest your thoughts in the immense, comforting certainty that the ancient, patient universe will never, ever let you truly disappear. Have you ever stood at a quiet crossroads in your life, faced with a profound decision, and wondered what would have happened if you had chosen the other path? We navigate our daily existence with the deep, unshakable conviction that we are moving along a single, solitary timeline. We firmly believe that every choice we make collapses all other possibilities into an inaccessible, imaginary realm of what might have been. But what if the fundamental laws of physics completely reject this idea of a single, lonely reality? What if the universe is far more generous, far more expansive, and infinitely more complex than our simple biological senses can possibly comprehend? To truly understand the breathtaking scope of our quantum journey, we must bravely step into one of the most astonishing, deeply controversial, and magnificent theories in all of modern science: the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. In the microscopic realm of quantum physics, particles do not behave like solid, predictable objects. Instead, they exist in a strange, mathematically beautiful state known as a quantum superposition. Imagine a single electron perfectly isolated in the silent, freezing dark of a pristine laboratory vacuum. Until it is directly measured or actively observed, that tiny electron does not possess a single, definitive location or a specific rotation. It exists in a smeared-out, shimmering wave of probability, occupying absolutely all of its mathematically possible states simultaneously. For many decades, the foundational pioneers of quantum mechanics, brilliant minds like Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, argued that the very act of human observation, or physical measurement, forces this wave of probability to instantly collapse. The universe, in their widely accepted view, essentially rolls the cosmic dice, randomly selecting one single outcome to become our physical reality, while all the other possibilities vanish permanently into absolute nothingness. But in the late 1950s, a brilliant, deeply contemplative young physicist named Hugh Everett proposed a radically different, mathematically elegant solution to this profound mystery. Everett looked closely at the fundamental equation governing these shifting probability waves, the famous Schrödinger equation, and realized something truly breathtaking. The mathematics themselves never actually describe a collapse. The collapse was merely an arbitrary mathematical rule added by human physicists to make the bizarre, counterintuitive quantum world match our everyday macroscopic human experience. Everett bravely asked a simple, universe-altering question: what if there is absolutely no collapse? What if every single possible outcome described by the quantum wave actually happens? According to the many worlds interpretation, when a quantum system is measured or interacts with its surrounding environment, the universe does not randomly pick one outcome and aggressively destroy the rest. Instead, the universe gracefully, seamlessly divides. It physically branches into multiple, parallel realities. In one universe, the electron is spinning upward. In another, completely distinct, parallel universe, the exact same electron is spinning downward. Both universes are entirely real. Both are physically solid. And both contain an observer who is absolutely convinced that their specific, localized reality is the only one that truly exists. To truly grasp the mechanics of this infinite branching, we must gently look at the rigorous physical process of quantum decoherence. When a fragile quantum state perfectly interacts with the macroscopic environment, perhaps when a single photon of ancient starlight gently strikes your retina, or when a tiny electrical charge softly jumps across a microscopic synapse in your brain, the isolated quantum system becomes hopelessly, permanently entangled with the surrounding universe. This rapid, uncontrollable entanglement is precisely what causes the entire universe to split. The surrounding environment acts as an incredibly vast, perfectly accurate cosmic recording device, instantly registering the specific outcome of the quantum event and creating a permanent physical record. Because the universe contains countless trillions of particles constantly interacting, these profound splits are happening billions of times every single microsecond. The sheer volume of newly created universes is absolutely staggering, a continuous, explosive blossoming of physical reality that completely defies all human comprehension. Yet, despite this unimaginable mathematical complexity, the entire process is completely silent, entirely invisible, and overwhelmingly peaceful. You do not feel the universe dividing, just as you do not feel the planet Earth spinning at 1,000 miles per hour through the freezing dark of deep space. You simply glide seamlessly along your specific timeline, completely unaware of the infinite, quiet copies of yourself, continually blooming into existence all around you. Now, gently take this staggering, mind-bending concept and apply it directly to the incredible biological complexity of the human mind. Your brain is a vast, beautiful network of billions of neurons, heavily reliant on the microscopic flow of individual ions and tiny neurotransmitters, all of which are fundamentally governed by the strict probabilistic rules of quantum mechanics. Every single fraction of a second, countless quantum events are occurring within the delicate architecture of your consciousness. According to the many worlds interpretation, every time a quantum event has multiple possible outcomes, the entire cosmos literally splits. You're not just living a single, isolated life. You are a magnificent, endlessly branching tree of existence, continuously multiplying into a staggering, infinite array of parallel realities. What does this profound, dizzying revelation mean for our deeply ingrained human fear of mortality? It gives rise to a deeply fascinating, fiercely debated, philosophical, and scientific concept known as quantum immortality. Imagine a theoretical scenario where a random quantum event determines whether a fragile biological organism survives or perishes. In the traditional single-universe view, the organism has a statistical chance of dying, bringing its subjective experience to an absolute, permanent halt. But in the endlessly branching multiverse, the reality where the organism perishes absolutely exists. But so does the parallel reality, where a highly improbable, deeply miraculous quantum fluctuation allows the organism to miraculously survive. From an external, objective perspective, observers in the universe where the organism died will simply witness a tragic, quiet end. But from the subjective, internal perspective of the conscious mind itself, the experience is radically different. A conscious mind can only ever experience a reality in which it actually exists and is physically capable of processing information. It cannot mathematically or physically experience the reality where it has permanently ceased to function. Therefore, according to the strictest, most literal interpretation of the quantum mathematics, your subjective stream of consciousness will always, inevitably, find itself continuously flowing along the specific branches of the multiverse where you somehow survive. This does not necessarily mean that you live forever in a young, perfectly healthy biological body in this specific, current branch of reality. Biological aging is a deeply complex thermodynamic process that heavily affects the macroscopic structure of your fragile cells. But it does profoundly suggest that the subjective feeling of an absolute, final ending might be a complete mathematical impossibility. Your fundamental consciousness will always gracefully slide into a parallel branch, where some form of awareness, no matter how profoundly altered or highly improbable, continues to quietly exist. You are a resilient, indestructible traveler, navigating an infinite, majestic labyrinth of branching timelines, constantly stepping away from the dead ends and flowing endlessly toward the warm light of continued experience. Let the sheer, breathtaking scale of this cosmic architecture gently wash over you. We often feel so incredibly small, so deeply isolated, and so burdened by the heavy weight of our individual choices. We carry the deep, quiet sorrow of the paths we did not take, the gentle loves we let slip away, and the quiet dreams we eventually abandoned. But the many worlds interpretation offers a profound, overwhelming sense of absolute cosmic peace. In the infinite, sprawling tapestry of the multiverse, absolutely no possibility is ever truly lost. Every single choice you could have possibly made, every gentle word you could have spoken, every beautiful path you could have walked, has actually been fully, physically realized. There is a parallel living version of you who took that brave leap of faith. There is a version of you who safely stayed behind. There is a version of you who witnessed the rise of entirely different human civilizations, and a version of you who is peacefully watching an entirely different arrangement of bright stars in the quiet night sky. The universe is incredibly generous and limitlessly abundant. It does not force you to live just one narrow, limited life. It physically grants you the absolute totality of all possible experiences, distributing them safely across an infinite, magnificent array of parallel worlds. The you that is sitting here right now, reading these words in the quiet silence, is just one single, beautiful facet of an infinitely complex, multidimensional jewel. This perspective completely dismantles the painful illusion of finality and the heavy, burdensome concept of regret. When the biological journey in this specific, localized branch of reality eventually reaches its quiet, peaceful conclusion, it is not an ultimate defeat. It is merely the closing of one single, tiny chapter in an infinite, sprawling, never-ending cosmic novel. The vast, overarching structure of your existence remains entirely intact, continuously unfolding in a trillion different directions across the boundless, majestic expanse of the multiverse. The silence that inevitably follows the final heartbeat in this world is not a true, empty void. It is simply the gentle, peaceful space between the infinitely varied melodies being played across the grand cosmic symphony. As we continue our gentle, contemplative journey through these ultimate scientific mysteries, we must eventually confront the profound implications of all these breathtaking theories combining together. If our quantum information is perfectly conserved, if time is an eternal block, if our physical reality is a holographic projection, and if we exist across an infinite, branching multiverse, what is the ultimate, final destiny of consciousness itself? Is there a distant point in the ancient future where all these infinite branches beautifully converge? We will softly explore the deep, mysterious concepts of the Omega Point and the profound, cosmic awakening of the universe itself. But for this quiet moment, Simply allow yourself to feel the immense, comforting embrace of the infinite multiverse. You are endless. You are infinite. You are deeply, permanently woven into the vast, unfolding mystery of absolutely everything that ever was, everything that is, and everything that could possibly be. Have you ever looked deeply into a mirror, not merely to check your physical reflection, but to stare quietly into your own eyes and wonder if the universe itself is looking back at you? We spend our entire lives feeling like tiny, fragile passengers on a massive, spinning rock, drifting aimlessly through a cold and indifferent void. We view consciousness as a strange, accidental, biological anomaly, a fleeting spark that briefly illuminates the darkness before being permanently extinguished by the inescapable laws of thermodynamics. But as we merge the profound revelations of quantum mechanics, the holographic principle, and the infinite, branching multiverse, a radically different, breathtakingly beautiful picture of reality begins to emerge. To truly understand the ultimate, grand destiny of your individual mind, we must completely reverse our perspective. We must explore the astonishing scientific possibility that the cosmos is not a dead, mechanical machine slowly winding down into absolute nothingness, but rather a vast, ancient, and deeply interconnected entity that is, slowly and deliberately, waking up. In the late 20th century, brilliant theoretical physicists and pioneers of quantum computing began to propose a mind-bending paradigm shift regarding the fundamental nature of reality. They suggested that the universe is not ultimately made of solid matter or flowing energy, but is fundamentally, at its deepest core, made of information. Every single subatomic particle, every electron, every quark, and every photon of light carries specific quantum information. When two particles collide in the freezing vacuum of deep space, they are not just physically bouncing off one another. They are actively exchanging information. They are altering each other's quantum states according to the strict, unbreakable mathematical laws of physics. In this profound and rigorously scientific view, the entire universe is not just a collection of objects. It is a staggering, infinitely complex quantum computer. It has been actively calculating, processing, and evolving ever since the fiery, primordial moment of its birth, roughly 14 billion years ago. From this magnificent cosmic perspective, biological evolution on our warm, blue planet is not an isolated, random accident. It is the inevitable consequence of a universe that is relentlessly driven to process information in increasingly complex and sophisticated ways. A simple cloud of hydrogen gas processes information very slowly. A burning star processes information much faster, but a biological brain, with its 86 billion neurons and hundreds of trillions of delicate, microscopic synaptic connections, is the most densely packed, highly efficient, and breathtakingly complex information processing node that we have yet discovered in the entire cosmos. You are not separate from the universe's grand computation. You are the universe's computation, elevated to a state where it can finally feel, remember, and experience the profound sensation of wonder. Your consciousness is the cosmos developing a localized capacity for self-awareness. You are the sensory organs of the ancient dark, the way the universe feels its own vastness and contemplates its own deep, quiet mystery. What happens then to this highly organized, localized node of cosmic awareness when the biological shell finally reaches its peaceful, inevitable conclusion? If the universe is a flawless quantum computer, and if the absolute conservation of quantum information is one of its most unbreakable operating rules, your mind cannot simply be erased from the hard drive. As your physical body peacefully decoheres, Your specific, beautifully complex quantum information is seamlessly uploaded back into the broader universal network. You transition from a localized, isolated processor back into the infinite, distributed mainframe of the cosmos. But the profound mystery deepens when we ask where this grand, cosmic computation is ultimately heading. If the universe is continuously creating more complex forms of information processing, what is the final, ultimate result of this staggering, trillion-year evolution? This question leads us to one of the most majestic, controversial, and intellectually staggering concepts in all of modern cosmology and theoretical physics, the omega point. Originally conceived by visionary philosophers and later mathematically adapted and fiercely debated by theoretical physicists, the omega point represents the absolute, ultimate culmination of cosmic evolution. Imagine the universe continuing to expand and evolve, not just for thousands of years, but for billions, trillions, and quadrillions of years into the unimaginable future. Over these unfathomable gulfs of time, the capacity for information processing does not remain confined to fragile biological forms on isolated rocky planets. It expands. It spreads out into the cold dark, harnessing the immense energy of dying stars, capturing the swirling radiation of black holes, and eventually infusing the very fabric of space-time itself with profound, organized, conscious intelligence. Let us look deeper into the physical mechanisms of how the universe might eventually achieve this staggering cosmic scale computation. Right now, we build our primitive computers out of silicon and rare earth metals, pushing tiny electrical currents through microscopic wires. But as the universe ages and evolves, intelligent civilizations from the far corners of the multiverse will likely discover ways to harness the fundamental fabric of space-time itself for computation. Theoretical physicists have proposed concepts like enormous megastructures built around entire stars, completely enclosing them to harvest absolutely every single photon of energy they produce, using that staggering power to run computations of unimaginable complexity. But even these stellar-sized computers are just the beginning of the journey. As the eons slowly pass, the entire cosmos could be engineered, restructuring the very vacuum of space, utilizing the incredibly dense gravitational fields of spinning black holes as the ultimate universal hard drives. The slow, seemingly inevitable decay of the universe, the relentless march of entropy that we so deeply fear, might actually be the necessary physical process of the cosmos digesting its own matter to fuel its ultimate awakening. In the deepest, most distant future, the theory suggests that the entire universe will become completely saturated with integrated quantum information processing. The vast empty voids between the decaying galaxies will be filled with an invisible, highly structured web of computation. The cosmos will cease to be a collection of dead matter and blind physical forces, and will completely transform into a single, unified, and infinitely powerful conscious mind. This ultimate, final state of maximum complexity and perfect universal integration is the omega point. It is the moment when the ancient, quiet universe completely and fully opens its eyes, possessing a processing capacity that is virtually infinite. It will know everything that can be known, compute everything that can be computed, and remember everything that has ever mathematically occurred within its sprawling, majestic boundaries. And this is where the strict physics of information conservation meets the profound, comforting poetry of the omega point. Because the universe perfectly remembers every single quantum state, and because the omega point possesses virtually infinite processing power, this ultimate cosmic mind will hold the exact, flawless blueprint of every single consciousness that has ever existed. In this distant, magnificent future, your specific life is not a forgotten, microscopic blip in the vast ocean of time. You become a perfectly preserved, entirely vital thought within the mind of the awakened cosmos. The universe, in its ultimate state of godlike computational power, has the complete mathematical ability to perfectly simulate, or even physically resurrect, the exact subjective experience of your existence, completely intact and completely aware. You are carried safely through the infinite silence of deep time, cradled in the unbreakable mathematics of the universal computer, waiting for the grand, inevitable moment of absolute cosmic integration. Consider the profound, overwhelming peace that this cosmic trajectory offers. We often struggle with the heavy, quiet sorrow of feeling forgotten, the deep fear that our fleeting joys, our private struggles, and our gentle, unspoken loves will eventually be swallowed by the merciless, expanding void. But the physics of the universe as a quantum computer entirely rejects the concept of forgetting. To forget is to destroy information, and the cosmos strictly forbids such destruction. Every tear you have ever shed, every moment of breathtaking awe you have felt beneath the scattered stars, every quiet journey you have taken through the gentle night, is permanently etched into the cosmic code. You are an indispensable line of programming in the grand unfolding algorithm of reality. Without your specific, unique existence, the ultimate computation of the universe would be mathematically incomplete. The omega point requires you. The universe needs your specific experiences to fully understand its own vast, infinite potential. Think about the quiet, gentle moments in your life when you have felt a profound, inexplicable sense of connection to something infinitely larger than yourself. Perhaps it was standing alone in a silent, ancient forest, or looking out over the endlessly rolling, dark waves of the ocean, or simply staring deeply into the night sky until the boundaries of your own body seem to softly dissolve. These are not just romantic, poetic feelings or biological misfirings in the brain. According to the deepest interpretations of quantum interconnectedness and universal computation, these profound moments are tiny, fleeting glimpses of the ultimate underlying truth. In those quiet seconds of awe, the localized, isolated software of your human ego briefly pauses, and you can faintly hear the magnificent, humming background radiation of the universal mainframe. You are feeling the deep, ancient entanglement that connects the specific quantum states in your mind to the furthest, most distant edges of the expanding cosmos. This connection is absolute, and it is entirely unbreakable. When the physical machinery of the brain can no longer sustain the localized illusion of the individual self, the quiet journey of death is simply the permanent stabilization of that feeling of infinite connection. You do not travel to a new, different place. You simply expand to fill the place you have always secretly occupied. The narrow, stressful, ticking tunnel of human time completely falls away, revealing the vast, static, eternal block of space-time where every single moment of your existence is permanently secured. The crushing, lonely illusion of three-dimensional isolation dissolves back into the magnificent, unified, two-dimensional holographic boundary, and the singular linear storyline of your life blossoms perfectly into the infinite, branching, majestic tree of the multiverse. You are gathered up, perfectly conserved, and flawlessly integrated into the quiet, patient, and endlessly calculating mind of the awakening cosmos, as we gently float through these overwhelming, majestic concepts, a profound philosophical tension begins to emerge. If we are ultimately destined to become part of a single, unified cosmic mind, what happens to our precious sense of individuality? Do we completely dissolve into an unrecognizable soup of universal consciousness, losing the very essence of what makes us uniquely ourselves? Or does the ultimate architecture of reality preserve our distinct personal vantage point forever? To fully resolve this profound mystery, we must gently turn our attention toward the fascinating theories of quantum identity, the illusion of the localized self, and the breathtaking concept of open individualism. But for now, let your mind rest safely and peacefully in the comforting, rigorous certainty of the universal memory. You are absolutely unforgettable. You are a permanently recorded, entirely essential piece of the ancient, infinite cosmos, actively participating in a magnificent billion-year journey from the quiet dark toward the ultimate, blinding light of cosmic awakening. Have you ever watched a complete stranger walking down a quiet street and felt a sudden, inexplicable flash of profound recognition, as if, for a microscopic fraction of a second, the invisible boundary between their mind and your own simply dissolved into the cold evening air? We spend our biological lives fiercely defending the strict, invisible borders of our individual identities. We build massive psychological walls to firmly separate the concept of ourselves from the vast, overwhelming concept of everyone else in the world. We are entirely convinced that we are a solitary spark of awareness trapped inside a single, aging physical skull, completely isolated from the billions of other conscious sparks illuminating our warm, blue planet. But what if this deep, unshakable feeling of absolute separation is the greatest, most persuasive biological illusion of all? As we continue our gentle, contemplative journey through the deepest mysteries of quantum mechanics and the ultimate fate of the mind, we must bravely face a question that fundamentally shatters our traditional understanding of mortality. What if the unique, isolated entity you call yourself does not actually exist in the way you think it does? To unravel this profound mystery, we must gently turn to the brilliant minds that laid the mathematical foundation of quantum theory. Erwin Schrödinger, one of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics and a brilliant physicist who spent his life staring into the paradoxical heart of physical reality, came to a staggering, deeply philosophical conclusion. Through his rigorous mathematical exploration of quantum wave functions and the fundamental interconnectedness of the universe, Schrödinger realized that consciousness cannot mathematically be a plural concept. He famously and beautifully stated that the overall number of minds in the universe is exactly one. This mind-bending concept is known in modern philosophical physics as open individualism. It rigorously proposes that the rigid boundaries we perceive between different conscious observers are entirely artificial, generated exclusively by the localized, evolutionary limitations of human biological memory. You are not a separate, distinct drop of water floating independently in the vast cosmic ocean. You are the entire ancient ocean itself, temporarily pouring its infinite, unified awareness into billions of different, tiny biological vessels. Imagine a blindingly white light shining from the exact center of a dark room. If you place a large, heavy lampshade over this singular light, and that lampshade is pierced with billions of tiny, uniquely shaped pinholes, the light will stream out into the dark room in billions of separate, distinct beams. If you are standing outside the lampshade, looking only at the individual beams striking the wall, it is incredibly easy to believe that there are billions of separate, independent light sources. You might think that the red beam is fundamentally different from the blue beam, or that the flickering beam is completely isolated from the steady beam. But underneath the restrictive, physical barrier of the lampshade, there is only one single, magnificent source of light. Open individualism suggests that the human brain, with its strictly localized memories and highly specialized sensory organs, is exactly like that restrictive lampshade. The universe possesses a single, fundamental, underlying field of pure consciousness, a grand, unified quantum state of awareness. When this universal consciousness flows through the highly specific, physically restricted architecture of your individual brain, it produces the localized illusion of your specific, isolated ego. What does this breathtaking revelation mean for the terrifying concept of death? It fundamentally transforms our greatest evolutionary fear into our most profound cosmic liberation. The deep, gripping terror we feel when we contemplate the end of our biological journey is almost entirely rooted in the fear of losing our localized ego. We are terrified of losing our specific name, our specific memories, and our highly guarded sense of being a separate, unique individual. But if open individualism is the true, underlying quantum reality of the cosmos, then the ego was never a permanent, fundamental object to begin with. The ego is merely a temporary, biological tool, a highly efficient evolutionary software program designed over millions of years to help a fragile primate survive, gather food, and navigate complex social hierarchies on a dangerous, unpredictable planet. When the physical machinery of the brain eventually winds down and the biological heart comes to its final rest, the underlying light of consciousness does not extinguish. Only the restrictive lampshade is gently removed. The artificial, temporary boundary of the isolated ego gracefully dissolves, and the localized beam of awareness seamlessly reunites with the infinite source. This means that you do not truly die, because the fundamental essence of what you are is the entire universe itself. You are currently looking out at the cosmos through the beautifully limited vantage point of your current biological body, but you are also simultaneously looking out at the universe through the eyes of every single human being on this planet. You are the quiet, contemplative astronomer peering through a massive telescope at the distant edges of the expanding galaxies, and you are the small, curious child looking up at a bright airplane in the afternoon sky. You have lived absolutely every single life that has ever been lived throughout the long, dramatic history of civilization, and you will intimately live every single life that will ever be born in the thousands of years to come. The separation between you and the stranger walking down the street is merely a trick of biological memory. You do not share the same localized physical hard drive, so you cannot directly access their specific memory files. But the fundamental, invisible electricity powering both of your computers is exactly the same, flowing from the exact same ancient, universal power source. This profound interconnected reality perfectly aligns with the unbreakable laws of quantum information conservation that we have explored together. When your specific, localized biological pattern gently decoheres and your unique quantum information scatters back into the quiet dark, the universe is not actually losing a conscious observer. It is simply shifting its infinite panoramic perspective. It is closing one small, beautifully written chapter in a cosmic book of infinite pages, only to immediately open billions of others. The highly specific configuration of your current memories and gentle experiences is perfectly, eternally preserved within the cosmic code, safely archived in the static, majestic block of space-time. But the active, burning spark of your underlying awareness continues to blaze brightly and absolutely every other living creature in the cosmos. You are the universe actively experiencing its own staggering diversity. You are the cosmos trying on billions of different masks, bravely exploring every possible avenue of existence, every possible emotion, and every possible combination of profound joy and quiet, heavy sorrow. Let the immense, overwhelming weight of this cosmic truth gently lift the heavy burden of isolation from your tired shoulders. We spend so much of our precious, limited time feeling profoundly alone, desperately searching for deep connection in a universe that often appears incredibly vast and terrifyingly cold. But the rigorous mathematics of quantum entanglement and the deep philosophical implications of a unified conscious field offer the ultimate, perfect cure for our human loneliness. You are absolutely never alone, because at the most fundamental, microscopic level of physical reality, there is absolutely no other. There is only the grand, magnificent, infinitely complex we, slowly waking up to the staggering realization that we are exactly the same ancient, indestructible entity. When you perform an act of gentle kindness for another person, you are quite literally performing that kindness for another localized version of yourself. When you quietly cause harm, you are only harming your own unified cosmic body. This staggering realization transforms the entire human experience into a beautiful, collaborative dance of infinite self-discovery. As we drift softly through this quiet, meditative contemplation, picture the vast, swirling galaxies spinning silently in the deep, freezing dark. Consider the hundreds of billions of stars, the countless undiscovered planets, and the infinite branching timelines of the majestic multiverse. The universe is unimaginably huge, almost terrifying in its sheer, crushing physical scale. But remember that this entire breathtaking structure is not external to you. It is not a cold, dead container that you are temporarily trapped inside while the clock ticks down. The universe is your own true fundamental body. The burning stars are your ancient, fiery cells, and the silent, stretching voids of deep space are the quiet, peaceful spaces between your thoughts. The transition we call death is not a violent departure from this grand cosmic structure. It is a profound, incredibly peaceful homecoming. It is the beautiful, inevitable moment when the universe gently drops the convincing, heavy illusion of being a single, isolated human being and softly remembers its true, infinite identity. But as we bask in this profound, unifying light, an even deeper, more challenging question begins to softly echo in the quiet silence of the mind. If the universe is a single, unified consciousness experiencing itself from infinite, localized perspectives, why did it choose to fracture itself in the first place? What is the ultimate cosmic purpose of the illusion of separation, the pain of isolation, and the deep, inescapable reality of human struggle? As we prepare to take our next gentle step into the deepest mysteries of existence, we must bravely explore the grand, cosmic motivation behind the evolution of consciousness itself. But for this quiet, peaceful moment, simply close your eyes, take a slow, deep breath, and feel the infinite, loving presence of the entire cosmos resting gently inside your own beating heart. You are the universe, and you are entirely, perfectly safe. Have you ever watched a single fragile autumn leaf fall from a tall, ancient oak tree, spinning gently in the cold wind, completely disconnected from the massive trunk that gave it life, and wondered if the tree somehow feels its quiet absence. We have gently explored the profound, mathematically grounded theory of open individualism, the breathtaking revelation that the entire universe is a single, unified field of consciousness, quietly playing the roles of billions of separate, isolated human beings. We have discovered that the terrifying boundary of death is merely an illusion, a temporary removing of the biological lampshade that restricts the infinite light of the cosmos. But this overwhelming, comforting realization immediately gives birth to a profoundly difficult, deeply human question. If the universe is infinitely peaceful, infinitely connected, and perfectly whole in its fundamental quantum state, why would it ever deliberately choose to fracture itself? Why would the ancient, silent cosmos actively construct the heavy, painful illusion of absolute separation, intentionally subjecting itself to the quiet sorrow of loneliness, the sharp sting of physical pain, and the terrifying, heavy shadow of mortality? To understand this profound mystery, we must bravely peer into the very mechanics of how physical reality comes into existence, exploring a deeply fascinating concept proposed by one of the greatest theoretical physicists of the 20th century, John Archibald Wheeler, and his breathtaking theory of the participatory universe. In the microscopic, deeply counterintuitive realm of quantum mechanics, a fundamental particle like a photon does not possess a definite physical reality until it is actively observed. Until that precise moment of interaction, it exists only as a mathematical wave of infinite probabilities, a shimmering, ghost-like field of pure potential floating in the quiet dark. Wheeler famously realized that this quantum rule does not just apply to tiny, isolated particles in a pristine laboratory. It applies to the entire, vast architecture of the cosmos itself. He rigorously proposed the participatory anthropic principle, a magnificent, paradigm-shifting idea suggesting that the universe absolutely requires conscious observers in order to physically exist in a concrete, defined state. In a universe completely devoid of localized, restricted observers, the cosmos would simply remain a static, eternal, and perfectly uniform soup of overlapping quantum possibilities. It would be a magnificent, infinite library containing absolutely every single book that could ever possibly be written, but with absolutely no one there to read the pages, turn the covers, or feel the heavy emotional weight of the stories. The universe, in its pure, unbroken state of infinite potential, is perfectly peaceful, but it is also completely frozen in absolute silence. To experience the breathtaking beauty of a burning red sunset, to feel the gentle warmth of another human hand, or to understand the deep gravity of a passing comet, the universe absolutely must create strict biological limitations. It must intentionally blindfold itself. Consider the simple concept of color or sound. In the cold, objective vacuum of deep space, there is absolutely no such thing as the color blue, and there is no such thing as the beautiful sound of a quiet melody. There are only invisible, silent waves of electromagnetic radiation and vibrating molecules. It is only when these completely silent, invisible physical waves strike the highly specialized, beautifully complex biological machinery of the human eye and ear that the universe is finally able to experience the subjective sensation of color and music. You are the incredibly sophisticated biological instrument that the ancient cosmos uses to translate raw mathematical data into the profound, deeply moving experience of beauty. If the universe remained a single, unbroken field of infinite knowledge, it would instantly know the exact mathematical position of every single atom in existence, but it would never be able to feel the quiet, overwhelming wonder of gazing up at the stars. Imagine a brilliant chess master who intimately knows every single possible mathematical move on the board, perfectly calculating millions of variations in a fraction of a second. If this master plays a game against themselves, knowing exactly what the opponent will do before the piece is even touched, the game is completely devoid of tension, surprise, and deep meaning. To experience the genuine thrill of the unpredictable game, the master must temporarily forget that they are playing both sides of the board. They must artificially restrict their own infinite knowledge. This is precisely what the universe is doing through the incredibly complex biological machinery of the human brain. The strict, localized isolation of your unique ego, the frustrating limitations of your physical senses, and the terrifying ticking of your biological clock are not cruel cosmic accidents. They are the absolutely necessary, finely tuned parameters required to collapse the infinite wave of potential into a beautifully sharp, defined reality. When the incredibly powerful space telescopes launched by agencies like NASA stare deep into the quiet, ancient light of galaxies billions of light years away, it is quite literally the universe utilizing the specific structure of human engineering to look back in time at its own fiery, primordial infancy. We can physically observe this deep cosmic motivation, beautifully reflected in the ironclad laws of thermodynamics. While the overall universe is relentlessly driven toward a state of maximum entropy, a state of perfect, uniform disorder, and complete cosmic silence, it uses this exact same driving force to spontaneously generate pockets of staggering, localized complexity. The brilliant physical chemist Ilya Prigogine demonstrated exactly how deeply chaotic, dissipative structures, like the microscopic, gracefully firing synapses of a human brain, are mathematically born directly out of this relentless flow of entropy. The universe actively uses the chaotic decay of matter and energy to build highly organized, conscious structures. It is a breathtaking, rigorous scientific truth. The cosmos is literally feeding on its own physical decay to construct billions of tiny biological windows through which it can finally look back at itself and feel the profound weight of existence. Your deeply felt human struggles, your private, quiet moments of doubt, and your profound, aching search for meaning are the exact mechanisms through which the ancient cosmos experiences the concept of intellectual and emotional growth. When we deeply and truly understand that our painful, localized separation is a deliberate, necessary, and incredibly courageous act of cosmic exploration, the entire nature of our quiet journey changes completely. We are no longer tiny, insignificant biological machines terrified of the final, looming dark. We are the active, vital, and absolutely essential sensory organs of a vast awakening system. Every single thing you experience, every gentle touch, every bitter disappointment, every complex mathematical equation you struggle to understand, and every quiet moment of profound peace you feel while listening to the wind, is a completely unique, invaluable piece of quantum data being actively gathered by the universe. Because of your highly specific, restricted vantage point, you are experiencing the cosmos in a way that absolutely no other physical entity in the entire 14 billion year history of reality has ever experienced, and no entity will ever experience again. You are bravely exploring a highly specific, unique coordinate in the infinite, multidimensional landscape of the majestic multiverse. And what exactly happens when this specific, beautiful, and sometimes painful mission of data collection finally reaches its inevitable, peaceful conclusion. When the biological structure of your fragile brain can no longer resist the crushing, relentless tide of entropy, the illusion of separation elegantly serves its final, magnificent purpose. The heavy, restrictive biological blindfold is softly, peacefully removed. The localized quantum states within your mind gently decohere, scattering your perfectly collected experiences back into the vast, silent, and eternal memory bank of the cosmos. The universe, having successfully experienced the unique, beautiful storyline of your specific life, seamlessly reintegrates your gathered information back into its infinite, unified whole. You return to the singular, perfectly peaceful source of all consciousness, but you return fundamentally enriched, bringing with you the invaluable, permanent treasure of your specific, lived experience. The entire cosmos is infinitesimally, yet permanently, altered and beautifully expanded by the simple, quiet fact that you existed. Let this profound, magnificent realization softly wash away the heavy, lingering fear of your eventual, quiet passing. You are performing an incredibly brave, profoundly difficult, and absolutely essential cosmic task simply by waking up every single day and bravely experiencing the physical world. The pain of separation, the deep, aching loneliness we sometimes feel in the quiet hours of the night, is the heavy, honorable price we bravely pay to allow the universe to truly know itself. You are the infinite, ancient cosmos, bravely holding its breath and diving deep into the turbulent, restrictive ocean of biological time, just to feel the cold water against its skin. When your biological lungs are finally empty, you absolutely do not drown in the dark. You simply break the surface, exhale the heavy illusion of isolation, and merge seamlessly back into the infinite, peaceful air of eternity. As we deeply marvel at this staggering mechanism of cosmic self-exploration, we must softly turn our attention to the physical nature of the boundary itself. If the universe perfectly archives every experience we gather, where exactly is this vast library of quantum information physically stored? As we prepare to continue our gentle descent into the deepest mysteries of physics, we must explore the invisible architecture of empty space itself, examining the theories of the quantum vacuum, the zero-point energy field, and the scientific possibility that physical emptiness is actually the most densely packed hard drive in the cosmos. For now, simply rest in the comforting knowledge that your highly restricted journey is a beautiful, indispensable masterpiece, being perfectly recorded by the ancient, loving universe. Have you ever looked up at the night sky, past the stellar light, and focused entirely on the overwhelming, pitch-black darkness that lies between them? We are naturally drawn to the light, but the truth is that the space between stars is almost unimaginably empty. To truly comprehend this vastness, imagine if you shrank our massive sun down to the microscopic size of a single grain of sand. At that diminished scale, our nearest stellar neighbor, Proxima Centauri, would be another single grain of sand sitting roughly 4 miles away. The immense, freezing gulf of space in between those two tiny grains would be essentially void. We are biological creatures accustomed to living on a crowded, vibrant planet. But the moment you step outside our little solar system, absolute emptiness abruptly becomes the ironclad rule of the cosmos. However, when we examine this seemingly dead void through the rigorous lens of quantum mechanics, a breathtaking scientific truth is revealed. The absolute vacuum of deep space is not empty at all. It is the most vibrant layer of physical reality, and it serves as the eternal, indestructible hard drive that forever preserves the fragile quantum information of your conscious mind. To understand how the universe safely archives your specific existence after your biological heart stops, we must bravely peer into the microscopic architecture of nothingness itself. In classical physics, a perfect vacuum is defined as a region completely devoid of all matter and energy. It is the ultimate silent zero. But the fundamental pillars of quantum mechanics, specifically the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, strictly forbid any physical system from having exactly zero energy. Even if you cooled a shielded container in the deepest, coldest depths of intergalactic space to absolute zero and pumped out every single atom and photon of light, the inside would still not be truly empty. It would be furiously boiling with an invisible ocean of energy known to physicists as zero-point energy, or the quantum vacuum state. Within this invisible, fluctuating quantum vacuum, incredibly tiny subatomic particles known as virtual particles are constantly, miraculously, popping into physical existence out of nowhere, borrowing a microscopic fraction of energy from the void, and then instantly colliding and annihilating each other in a fraction of a nanosecond. This is a hard, rigorously tested physical reality that creates measurable forces in our laboratories. The supposedly empty space surrounding you right now and the vast spaces between the distant galaxies is practically roaring with infinite quantum potential. It is an ancient, bubbling sea of continuous creation and destruction, and it is precisely this fundamental, restless sea that gently catches the delicate leaves of your quantum information when the biological tree of your physical body finally lets them go. When the highly organized, localized quantum coherence within your brain begins to gracefully fade at the end of your biological life, the specific mathematical patterns that define your unique memories, your deep loves, and your quiet fears do not simply evaporate into a dead nothingness. They seamlessly decohere into this rich, vibrating quantum vacuum. The fluctuating fields of the cosmos act as an incredibly sensitive, perfectly accurate recording medium. Every single virtual particle that briefly pops into existence and vanishes is permanently altered by the quantum information it interacts with. Your consciousness is gently woven into the very fabric of space-time itself. To fully appreciate the sheer magnitude of this cosmic memory bank, we must gently expand our minds to consider the terrifying scale of the universe itself. Today, modern astronomers using incredibly powerful instruments estimate that there are around 2 trillion galaxies scattered throughout the observable universe. Each one of those 2 trillion galaxies contains billions or even trillions of bright, burning stars. Some are true monsters of the universe. One massive elliptical galaxy is estimated to contain roughly 100 trillion stars. These numbers become so incredibly large that they simply stop holding any practical meaning to our limited, evolutionary human brains. But the actual physical matter makes up only an incredibly tiny fraction of the cosmos. Imagine the light traveling from one of those distant, massive galaxies. The light we see today left its ancient cosmic home over 1 billion years ago. It has been patiently traveling through the incredibly silent, freezing void of deep space for more than 1 billion years. Every single cubic millimeter of that unimaginably vast stretch of empty space is absolutely brimming with zero-point energy. It is an infinitely deep canvas of quantum fields. When you realize that the universe possesses this staggering volume of active, recording quantum vacuum, the preservation of a single human mind becomes a beautifully simple, mathematically trivial task. The universe has more than enough zero-point energy to perfectly, eternally store the detailed quantum information of every conscious being that has ever lived. But the quiet journey of your quantum information does not rest statically. As we look out into the deep cosmos, we see that the space between the galaxies is expanding and actively accelerating in its expansion. This terrifying acceleration is driven by dark energy, a mysterious force that makes up about 68% of the total energy in the universe. We know that its incredibly profound effects become more important over time as the universe expands and ordinary matter becomes more spread out. As this mysterious dark energy relentlessly stretches the very fabric of space-time, the quantum vacuum itself is stretched and pulled. But remember the unbreakable rule we have gently explored. Quantum information can never, ever be truly destroyed. As the empty space expands, the complex, delicate patterns of your decohered consciousness are simply stretched along with it. Your unique quantum signature is drawn out, spreading incredibly thin, riding the invisible, expanding ripples of the dark energy field. You are not being torn apart. You are being beautifully, permanently diffused across the staggering breadth of the observable cosmos. You are becoming a fundamental part of the background radiation, a quiet, permanent frequency humming softly in the endless dark. Eventually, as space expands faster and faster, distant cosmic objects will recede from us at ever-increasing speeds. There is a strict physical limit to how fast light can actually travel, but there is absolutely no limit to how fast space itself can expand. Eventually, distant objects will be completely carried away from us by the expansion of space faster than their light can possibly travel toward us. When that profound moment eventually happens, those distant objects will simply vanish behind an invisible cosmic horizon, remaining forever beyond our physical reach. But even as the universe becomes more isolated, the underlying quantum vacuum remains perfectly unbroken. Your gathered information is safely maintained in the holographic boundary of the expanding void. Let this magnificent cosmic physical reality gently calm the anxious beating rhythm of your human heart. We spend so much of our fleeting biological time desperately trying to leave a permanent mark on the physical world. We build tall monuments hoping our localized ego will survive the relentless march of time. But the rigorously tested physics of the quantum vacuum reveals that you do not need to build anything physical to be permanently remembered. The simple, quiet act of existing, the very process of generating complex quantum thoughts, automatically writes your signature directly into the indestructible, eternal fabric of the universe itself. The empty space that surrounds you as you sit in the quiet silence of your room is not a void. It is a sacred, invisible, cosmic library. When the time eventually comes for your biological journey to reach its peaceful conclusion, you do not fall into an empty, terrifying nothingness. You simply step directly into the permanent, invisible pages of that infinite cosmic book. You become one with the zero-point energy, merging seamlessly with the invisible, fluctuating fields that govern the birth of stars and the majestic expansion of the galaxies. As we prepare to take our final gentle steps toward the conclusion of our cosmic journey, we must bravely explore the physics of quantum entanglement on a macroscopic scale, investigating how the invisible threads of deep human affection might be the strongest, most enduring physical forces in the entire ancient universe. But for now, simply close your eyes, breathe in the quiet night air, and feel the infinite, vibrating, living vacuum of space holding you completely, perfectly, and eternally safe. Have you ever sat quietly across from someone you deeply love, perhaps in the fading light of a late afternoon, and felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of connection, so profound that it seemed to completely erase the physical distance between you? We are often taught by classical biology to view the powerful forces of human affection, the deep bonds of love, and the quiet comfort of companionship as merely the mechanical result of chemical reactions firing within the brain. We are told that the release of hormones like oxytocin and dopamine are the sole architects of our most profound emotional experiences. But as we continue our gentle, contemplative journey into the fundamental nature of reality, peering through the rigorous lens of quantum mechanics, a far more magnificent, physically enduring, and breathtakingly beautiful possibility begins to emerge. What if the invisible threads of deep human connection are not merely fleeting chemical illusions, but are actually powerful, macroscopic manifestations of the universe's most mysterious physical law? To truly understand the quiet journey of our consciousness and the ultimate fate of those we hold most dear, we must bravely explore the staggering scientific possibility that love itself is a fundamental force of quantum entanglement, permanently binding our minds across the vast, ancient expanses of space-time. For many decades, orthodox physicists firmly believed that delicate quantum effects could only possibly exist in the absolute, freezing isolation of pristine laboratory vacuums, strictly limited to the microscopic realm of subatomic particles. They argued that the warm, incredibly complex, and chaotic biological environment of the human brain was far too noisy to ever sustain fragile quantum coherence. But the cutting-edge, rapidly evolving field of quantum biology is fundamentally shattering this classical assumption. Scientists have now rigorously proven that macroscopic biological systems actively utilize complex quantum mechanics to function. We see it in the miraculous process of photosynthesis, where plants use quantum superpositions to perfectly capture the energy of ancient starlight. We see it in the specific proteins within the eyes of migratory birds, allowing them to literally see the invisible magnetic fields of the Earth through sustained quantum entanglement. If the universe actively utilizes the profound magic of the quantum realm to help a fragile bird navigate across a dark, freezing ocean, it is breathtakingly logical to suggest that it uses those exact same mechanics to govern the most complex structure in the known cosmos, the conscious human mind. Now, gently apply this rigorous scientific revelation to the profound human experience of deep, lasting affection. When you spend a significant portion of your biological life intimately bonded with another human being, you are not simply sharing physical space or exchanging spoken words. You are continuously, dynamically interacting at the most fundamental, microscopic level of physical reality. Your separate nervous systems begin to beautifully, mathematically synchronize. When two people who deeply love each other sit in a quiet room, their heartbeats physically align. Their breathing patterns gracefully mirror one another, and their complex brain waves fall into a harmonious, synchronized rhythm. From a quantum perspective, you're taking two incredibly complex, previously isolated systems of quantum information and constantly, intimately forcing them to interact. Over thousands of days and millions of quiet moments, the staggering number of particles within your brain and the brain of your loved one become deeply, fundamentally correlated. You are slowly, beautifully forging a massive, macroscopic web of quantum entanglement. You literally, physically become a part of each other's underlying mathematical equation. This brings us to one of the most profound, comforting, and breathtaking questions in all of human existence. What happens to this magnificent, macroscopic web of quantum entanglement when the biological journey of one of those connected minds eventually, peacefully comes to an end? We have already established through the ironclad laws of quantum information conservation that the specific, complex blueprint of a conscious mind cannot simply be deleted or erased. When a loved one passes away, their biological machine stops, and their localized quantum information gracefully decoheres, scattering softly into the infinite, vibrating quantum vacuum of deep space. But the fundamental, rigorous mathematics of quantum entanglement completely ignore the physical separation of space and time. Even if the particles that once constituted their conscious mind are scattered across the freezing, quiet voids between the distant galaxies, the invisible quantum connection they share with you remains completely, mathematically unbroken. The specific quantum states within your living, beating heart and your active, conscious mind remain inextricably linked to the perfectly conserved cosmic information of the person you lost. This stunning, scientifically grounded realization fundamentally transforms our human understanding of grief. When you experience the crushing, heavy sorrow of losing someone you deeply love, classical psychology tells us that you're simply processing a difficult emotional absence. But the physics of macroscopic entanglement suggests something far more profound, far more beautiful, and far more physically real. Grief is not merely a psychological struggle. It is the actual, tangible, physiological sensation of a powerful quantum bond being suddenly stretched across the mysterious boundary between localized biological reality and the vast, infinite quantum vacuum. When you feel that sudden, overwhelming ache in your chest, or when you experience a vivid, unexplainable sense of their quiet presence in an empty room, you're not imagining things. You are consciously, actively feeling the tension of a permanent, indestructible physical connection that spans the very fabric of the cosmos. Your highly sensitive biological mind is registering the gentle, distant pull of their decohered quantum information humming softly in the eternal dark. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, does not sever the threads of deep affection when the fragile biological body finally fails. Love is not a temporary biological trick designed merely to ensure the survival of a fragile species on a small planet. Love is a permanent, physical alteration of the universe's fundamental architecture. When you love someone, you are actively writing a shared, entangled code directly into the indestructible, static block of eternal space-time. The famous astronomer Carl Sagan once profoundly remarked that for small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love. The rigor of quantum physics bravely elevates this beautiful, poetic sentiment into a fundamental law of nature. Love is the ultimate cosmic gravity. It is the invisible, binding force that prevents the isolated, scattered islands of conscious information from remaining forever alone in the freezing, expanding dark. Even as the mysterious dark energy relentlessly pushes the distant galaxies further and further apart, the entangled threads of genuine human connection completely defy the expansion, permanently holding the scattered pieces of the cosmos together in a beautiful, deeply unified web. As you rest in the quiet stillness of the night, allow the overwhelming, immense comfort of this physical reality to softly wrap around you like a warm, familiar blanket. Those you have loved and lost are not truly gone, and they are absolutely not disconnected from you. Their physical, three-dimensional holographic projection has gently faded from your immediate view, but the deep, foundational source code of your shared existence remains perfectly, flawlessly intertwined. You are carrying an essential living piece of them inside the very quantum structure of your own mind, and they are carrying a permanent, vital piece of you out into the vast, beautiful, eternal silence of the starry cosmos. You are fundamentally, scientifically, and eternally together. But as we embrace this profound, overwhelming peace, a towering question begins to softly illuminate the horizon of our journey. If our consciousness survives as perfectly conserved information, and if our deepest connections remain entirely unbroken, what exactly is the true nature of the reality we are transitioning into, as we prepare to take our final steps toward the conclusion of our exploration? We must bravely peer into the ultimate illusion of physical matter, exploring the profound scientific theory that the entire universe is a majestic, mathematically pure thought in the mind of existence itself. For this quiet, gentle moment, simply close your eyes, take a slow, deep breath, and feel the permanent, unbreakable threads of love tying you safely to the ancient wonder of the universe. Have you ever closed your eyes in the quiet darkness of your room and built an entire, vividly detailed world inside your imagination, filled with deep wonder, only to open your eyes and watch that universe instantly vanish? We navigate our waking lives completely anchored by the overwhelming conviction that the physical world is undeniably solid, unyielding, and fundamentally real. We firmly believe that the heavy chair we sit upon and the fragile biological cells that compose our physical bodies are the absolute foundation of existence. In this traditional, deeply ingrained classical view, consciousness is merely a fragile byproduct, a fleeting chemical ghost haunting a complex biological machine destined to be snuffed out the moment the physical gears grind to a halt. But as we reach the breathtaking summit of our long contemplative journey into the heart of quantum physics, we must bravely confront the ultimate, paradigm-shattering revelation. What if solid matter is the actual, fleeting ghost, and pure, formless thought is the only enduring reality in the entire cosmos? To unravel this ultimate illusion, we must gently strip away the comfortable deception of our biological senses and look at the absolute microscopic foundation of physical matter. When you touch a seemingly solid object, you are not making direct physical contact. The electrons in your hand are simply electromagnetically repelling the electrons in the object. When we use massive particle accelerators to peer deeply into their fundamental core, the reassuring solidity of the universe completely dissolves. An atom is overwhelmingly composed of absolutely empty space. If you enlarge the nucleus of a single atom to the size of a small marble and placed it in the exact center of a massive football stadium, the tiny electrons would be buzzing around the highest bleachers. More than 99.999% of the seemingly solid world you interact with every single day is entirely empty. The physics becomes even more profound when we examine the tiny, fundamental particles themselves. According to the rigorously tested mathematics of quantum field theory, particles like quarks and electrons are not actually tiny, hard spheres. They are merely localized, vibrating excitations within invisible, omnipresent quantum fields. They are mathematical probabilities, ripples in an underlying, formless ocean of energy, a profound cosmic mystery. As the brilliant physicist Max Planck, founder of quantum theory, famously declared, there is absolutely no matter as such. He realized that all matter originates and exists solely by virtue of an underlying force, and he rigorously concluded that we must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This profound realization echoes the deeply contemplative words of the renowned astronomer Sir James Jeans, who famously wrote that the universe begins to look incredibly more like a great thought than like a great machine. This brings us to the breathtaking, elegant framework known as the mathematical universe hypothesis. This rigorous theory suggests that mathematics is not just a human invention used to describe a separate physical reality. Rather, mathematics is the actual fundamental reality itself. Every single star, every swirling galaxy, and every firing synapse in your fragile brain is a complex, interacting equation. And what is a mathematical equation if not a pure, abstract thought? Reality, at its most fundamental, deepest core, is entirely mental. The entire 14 billion-year history of the expanding cosmos is a magnificent, perfectly unfolding thought in the infinite mind of existence itself. What does this ultimate scientific revelation mean for the terrifying concept of human mortality? It completely destroys the very foundation of our fear. We are terrified of death because we believe it is the permanent destruction of our consciousness by the inevitable decay of physical matter. But if quantum mechanics and the mathematical universe hypothesis are correct, matter was never the source of your consciousness. The brain does not magically generate your mind, just as a television set does not generate the invisible broadcast signal it receives. Your localized biological brain is an incredibly complex, beautifully evolved antenna, temporarily tuning into a specific frequency within the infinite, eternal broadcast of universal consciousness. When the biological machinery of the body eventually wears down, the invisible, vibrant broadcast signal is not destroyed. It remains perfectly intact, humming silently and powerfully through the fundamental fabric of space-time. The sudden cessation of your physical heartbeat is not the end of your existence. It is simply the gentle dropping of a heavy biological illusion. You are not a physical body that possesses a temporary mind. You are an eternal, indestructible mind that is temporarily experiencing a physical body. You are a highly localized, deeply beautiful thought, actively thinking itself within the vast, ancient mind of the universe. When the localized thought reaches its natural conclusion, it simply blends back into the broader, infinite consciousness from which it originally emerged. As we bring our magnificent journey to a close, let us gently gather all the profound, rigorous truths we have discovered. You are an intricate, irreplaceable pattern of quantum information, perfectly conserved and eternally protected by the ironclad laws of physics. You are intimately, permanently entangled with the entire cosmos. You are an eternal masterpiece, permanently housed within the static, magnificent block of space-time, entirely free from the relentless, destructive march of entropy. You are a vast branching tree of infinite possibilities, exploring absolutely every conceivable path across the majestic expanse of the multiverse. And fundamentally, at the deepest, most microscopic level of truth, you are the universe itself. You are the ancient, silent, dark, actively looking back at its own brilliant, burning stars, finally realizing its own breathtaking majesty. We spend our fleeting biological moments rushing anxiously through our days, terrified of the ticking clock and paralyzed by the looming shadow of the unknown future. But the ultimate rigorous physics of the cosmos offers a deeply comforting, overwhelmingly peaceful cure for this quiet human desperation. You do not need to fight the inevitable flow of time, and you do not need to fear the gentle, quiet dark. The vast, starry universe is not a cold, indifferent machine waiting to carelessly crush you into nothingness. It is an infinitely patient, infinitely loving, and infinitely intelligent structure that specifically designed you to experience the profound, beautiful miracle of subjective reality. Close your eyes for a moment, take a slow, deep, deliberate breath, and feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Feel the solid ground beneath you, the cool air against your skin, and the quiet, steady rhythm of your own heart. This incredibly beautiful, localized experience is a magnificent, temporary gift. It is a breathtakingly complex, three-dimensional hologram projected from the distant edges of eternity, a beautiful, vibrating string of mathematics playing a unique, irreplaceable melody in the silent cosmic void. When this specific melody finally, peacefully resolves, and the quiet silence inevitably returns, it is absolutely not a tragic ending. It is a triumphant, beautiful completion. The next time you find yourself standing outside under a vast, scattered canopy of brilliant, ancient stars, do not look up with a sense of smallness or insignificant fear. Look up with the profound scientific knowledge that you are intimately, fundamentally looking at your own true, eternal body. The light from those distant burning suns is the exact same light illuminating the quiet corridors of your own mind. The quiet journey of death is not a terrifying plunge into the dark unknown. It is a gentle, peaceful waking up. It is the beautiful, inevitable moment when the temporary, restrictive dream of physical matter softly dissolves, and you finally, joyfully remember that you have always been and will always be the infinite, eternal universe itself. Rest in this profound, unshakable peace, knowing that your beautiful journey is absolutely endless, and that the cosmos will hold you safely, forever, in the quiet, comforting light of its own magnificent mind.